There's a saying that talks about negotiations and who has the most power in a negotiation. Maybe you've heard this before. The person who is most willing to walk away has the most power in a negotiation. I like to say, in layman's terms, the person who really doesn't give a crap is the person who has the most power. And I like to take this concept and also apply it to dating, meeting women, and attraction. On today's video, we're going to do a brief overview of the idea of inner game. So maybe you've heard of inner game. Actually, this comes from a book called The Inner Game of Tennis, which would teach tennis players how to have the good inner game, right? So there's the outer game, the techniques of playing the game, and the inner game is the mindset work. So the same applies to meeting and attracting women. There's outer game, the techniques in terms of what you say to her, and the outer techniques like eye contact and things that you're doing on the outside. But then there's the inner game, the things that you're thinking, the things that are going on inside of your mind and all of your mindsets. So the inner game of meeting and attracting women. And the reason why I brought up that negotiation part is because I think that that is very similar to the idea of the type of inner game that you need when you're meeting women. And again, the idea here that I'm going back to with the negotiation stuff is you need to be the person who's most powerful in the negotiation, so to speak, which means you need to be the person who doesn't care. You need to be the person who doesn't care as much in terms of when you're going and talking to a woman, even when you are dating a woman in a relationship. The person who cares the least holds the most power and is actually the most attractive. I like to say that inner game is also similar to this idea of confidence. I know you've heard that a billion times in your world of learning about meeting women, that women are attracted to confidence. I believe that confidence is an aspect of not caring, right? It's like when you're confident in something, you're not thinking too much about the thing that you're doing, i.e., you don't really care as much in a sense. You're not so focused on it. When you're confident in whatever you're doing, you're not thinking. The person who's thinking a lot cares a lot. So I kind of relate those two to each other. When you care too much, you're thinking too much. So the idea for you to build inner game would be to not care as much, to stop your thinking, and to be more zoned in and to be more present in what you're doing. The more you think, the more you overthink, the more you overanalyze, and the more you worry, that becomes the person who is the loser in the situation, meaning he's not going to get what he wants because he cares too much and he's too in his head. And that's unattractive to women because they can sense that. They can completely sense when you're in your head and when you're nervous and when you're not confident. Now you might be thinking, Trip, all sounds great, but how do I actually put this into practice? How do I become a man who can work on his inner game to not care as much, to not be an overthinker and over-worrier? I'm glad you asked, my friend. Well, what you need to do is you need to go through what I call rejection therapy. There's actually a really cool TED Talk that talks about that. I don't remember if the title was rejection therapy, but it was a person who labeled it as rejection therapy, someone who went out and got rejected by hundreds and hundreds of women as a way to numb himself and desensitize himself to rejection, to the point where it happens so much that you don't care anymore, that you become numb to it and desensitized to it. So I want you to take this concept and I want you to play with it. What would it take for you to go out there and get rejected that much to the point where it doesn't even matter anymore? What could you do as a social exercise to even lightly embarrass yourself in public? I know that sounds extreme, to get to the point where you don't care anymore, where you're not overthinking so much. I'll give you a quick example. I did this a long time ago. There was these social freedom exercises that I learned from a pickup artist at the time in the late aughts, in the 2008, 2009, 2010 area. And it was a list of 20 different social freedom exercises. And each one got a little bit harder and a little bit harder. So for example, there was one on there that was dance like crazy in public. There was one in there I believe this is one of the hardest ones. It says, go up to a stranger and tell them your deepest, darkest secret. And I remember that you have to get to the point where you do all these, and it gets harder and harder and harder, to the point where you feel, basically at the end of it, you care less, to the point where you feel more desensitized to doing crazier things. So imagine you do all these social freedom exercises. How much are you really going to care when you go up to a woman to have just normal conversation, normal chit chat, and she rejects you? It's probably not going to be that big of a deal anymore. So then you become desensitized, you care less, and you're strengthening your inner game. Another aspect, a whole different aspect of inner game, besides not caring as much and being desensitized to rejection, is the idea of building your self-esteem, building a stronger version of you. I believe this is one of the best ways, because when you like yourself or love yourself enough, when you respect yourself enough, then that also leads to you not caring what people think about you and becoming more confident. So this is another route to accessing that and to be more desensitized. When you like yourself enough and respect yourself enough. Self-esteem, I have thrown together into a formula. The formula is keeping the promises that you make to yourself and surrounding yourself by people who are trying or are winners, trying to be winners or who are winners. So that means that your peer group has a lot of effect on who you are. They say that you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time around. So if you're spending time with people who are not going anywhere, who complain a lot, have a lot of negative energy, that's going to weigh on you, that's going to weigh on your actions and your beliefs, and it's going to weigh on your self-esteem. And then keeping the promises that you make to yourself, that just means having little goals and accomplishing them. If you build your self-esteem in this way by surrounding yourself with good people and by keeping the promises that you make to yourself, you start to think of yourself in a higher level. You start to like yourself, respect yourself, and love yourself a lot more. And this, like I said, leads to having more confidence and feeling valuable enough where you actually feel that you are deserving of an amazing woman. And so when you get rejected by a woman, you're not going to care because you're going to think, her loss. So again, we're talking about inner game here. We're talking about the idea of not caring what people think about you, not caring about the worries and anxieties around little situations with women. It's about building confidence, it's about building self-esteem, and it's about being the person who enters the conversation, who is willing to walk away, who feels like they have nothing to lose. That is when you truly strengthen your inner game. If you want to learn more about inner game and outer game, I talk about this in my program called Hooked. You can check that out at getherhooked.com. I go deeper into this and talking about how you can become a man that's more attractive to women. You can check that out at the link down below. Get that video course. I hope today helped. If it did, smash that like button, and I'll see you on the next video.